Ralph Anthony Ignatowski was a United States Marine who was captured and killed by the Japanese in the Battle of Iwo Jima during World War II. It's believed that Ignatowski was either taken prisoner by Japanese troops, then tortured and killed, or he was killed and then mutilated in one of the many caves created by the Japanese Imperial Army. After heavy losses to their naval and air forces in previous battles, the Japanese decided to make a series of tunnels on the island of Iwo Jima that would protect their army from the bombs and artillery fire of the Allied ships and planes. The tunnels were so effective that the Japanese troops were left almost untouched by the hundreds of tons of bombs and thousands of artillery shells unleashed on the island by the Allies. This left US Marines to face over 20,000 Japanese soldiers that could seemingly appear from nowhere. It was a fierce 5-week battle with heavy losses on both sides. Private Iggy Ignatowski from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, originally failed his physical exam and had to use a friend's urine in order to pass so he could join the war. His second day on the island of Iwo Jima, he was wounded after taking shrapnel to the jaw, but was returned to the battle on the same day. He was said to have become good friends with John Doc Bradley, one of the soldiers famous for raising the American flag on Iwo Jima. Bradley was with Ignatowski shortly before he was captured by the Japanese. On March 4th, it was reported that the Japanese were seen taking Private Ignatowski into one of their caves. 2 hours later, they were seen taking the body of 2nd Lieutenant Leonard Sokol as well. Sokol had been killed in action earlier that same day. On March 7th, 1945, Ignatowski's body was discovered on a road badly mutilated, next to the body of Lieutenant Sokol. The lieutenant's body was reported to have been mutilated by a flamethrower. In this excerpt from Flags of Our Fathers, a book co-authored by John Bradley's son, Bradley speaks about Ignatowski's death. "I have tried so hard to block this out, to forget it. We could choose a buddy to go in with. My buddy was a guy from Milwaukee. We were pinned down in one area. Someone elsewhere fell injured and I ran to help out. And when I came back, my buddy was gone. I couldn't figure out where he was. I could see all around, but he wasn't there. And nobody knew where he was. A few days later, someone yelled that they'd found him. They called me over because I was a corpseman. The Japanese had pulled him underground and tortured him. His fingernails, his tongue, it was terrible. I've tried hard to forget all this." Many years later, in researching my father's life, I asked Cliff Langley, Doc's co-corpsman, about the discovery of Iggy's body. Langley told me it looked to him as though Ralph Ignatowski had endured just about every variety of physical cruelty imaginable. Both his arms were fractured, Langley said. They just hung there like arms on a broken doll. He had been bayoneted repeatedly. The back of his head had been smashed in. Other eyewitness reports further indicated that Ignatowski had been tortured in the cave by the Japanese for 3 days, during which time they also cut out his eyes, cut off his ears, smashed in his teeth, and cut off his genitalia. Ralph Anthony Ignatowski was eventually buried at the Rock Island National Cemetery in Illinois. On March 26, 1945, the Allies won the battle for Iwo Jima and eventually the war on September 2, 1945.